Tuesday, September 20th, 2022, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Today I'm going to talk about my experience acquiring gold for the first time and silver, and the experience I've had over the last 20 years or so. So it will help give you an idea of what gold and silver really are. And yes, that's what I'm going to do today, because I think it's more important than ever to have a little bit of monetary insurance. And you'll see what I mean by that when I go over it today. Before I start, I like to say that, yes, over the years, almost 7 years that I've been running this channel, doing my daily videos, people have asked me where can I buy gold and silver. And of course, I am in the UK, and I've provided them with some of affiliates that I work with, like Gold Investments, which is one of the oldest family-run bullion dealers in the city of London, and also more recently with Glint, which is a different kind of company. It's more of a technology company that provides you an app and stores your gold in Switzerland, and at the same time gives you a MasterCard to spend the gold. So all of you know probably my referral code or promo code with Gold Investments is Monaco 64. With Glint, it's Mario Glint 79. All the details are below in the description. But I have a more important announcement to make today as well, because a lot of my viewers, or the majority of my viewers actually, are in North America, and especially in the United States. So I've recently become a representative of Miles Franklin, and I'm really pleased to announce that I'm going to be working with Andy Schechtman. And I just read a very nice email from his father, the co-founder of Miles Franklin, David Schechtman. He watches the channel too, and I'm really happy to work with them. And I spoke about the possibility in the last live stream on Sunday, and many of you said, well, use the promo code or referral code Billy for Billy over there. And that's what we're going to be using, Billy at Miles Franklin. Well, Miles Franklin is one of America's oldest, most trusted bullion dealers, formed by the same father and son team 30 years ago that still operates it today. So there you go. And I've had Andy, of course, a couple of times on the channel in the last couple of months. And yes, I couldn't be happier to be affiliated with Andy and his father and Miles Franklin. So there you go. Back to the topic of gold and silver. I know that was gold and silver as well, but something a little different. But I'll start with my first experience really with gold as money, or if you want to call it an investment, which it really isn't deep down an investment. It's money. Well, it was back in the mid to late 80s. My father decided to buy some gold. And I think at the time, the price of gold was around 400, maybe just above 400. And for the next few years, it didn't do anything. If anything, it went down. And I used to talk to my father about it. He was always said, well, you know, gold hasn't done anything. And eventually, in the early 90s, when it got back to his price, I think he sold it. And he held it with a bank. And so that was my first experience. And I saw how frustrated my father was, even though it wasn't a huge investment for him. And I always had that in my mind. So I never really thought too much about gold as money or anything at the time in the early 90s, mid 90s, when I started my career in the city in finance. I just thought money was the dollar or the pound or the Swiss franc. Gold didn't really come into my mind. I'd never really seen a gold coin. But eventually, after the dot-com bubble burst in 2000, 2001, my private pension from work got hit quite hard. It was invested in a mixture of stocks. And for some reason, my wife and I started talking. And we said, well, why don't we buy a little bit of gold to diversify? And at that time, I had already started looking into the Austrian School of Economics, and they talk a lot about gold. I had a little more knowledge about what was going on. But yeah, it was 2002, and I think gold was around $320, around 200 pounds. And I bought Krugerrands because at the time, Krugerrands were still like very famous, well known, because they were the coin, the bullion coin back in the 1970s, 1980s bull market in gold. So I bought quite a few Krugerrands. I wish I'd bought some more, knowing what the price would do in the ensuing years. But what it did to me in terms of learning about the system is that it got me interested, and it got me looking into gold, into the history. And I read all the books, Gold Wars. I read Fiat Money, Inflation in France. I read The Creature from Jekyll Island. I read the Austrian School of Economics. I was on the Mises.org website every day at work reading articles. And we even went in October 2002 to Auburn, Alabama, my wife and I, for the 20th anniversary of the Mises Institute. So got really into gold. And at the same time, of course, I was working in the city, following the bond markets, but also following gold now because I had those coins. And when you have something, when you have an interest, you follow your interest. And at the time, I saw gold more as an investment, that it would do well. And it didn't really in the first few years, believe it or not, especially in terms of pounds, British pounds, because the pound was fairly strong, believe it or not, in that period from 02 to 07. So it took about 3, 4, 5 years for gold to really start taking off in British pounds. And then you had the 08 crisis. Gold did very well as well in pounds and in dollars. I was really like surprised how well it did in pounds. Then we had that correction towards the end of 2008 when Lehman collapsed. But it was very, how can I say, short-lived. And the premiums, I remember very well, were very high. And at that time, I had gotten a lot of colleagues at work into gold. And I knew all the dealers in the city of London, aside from Gold Investments. There was John Haynes, who was a jeweler but dealt in sovereigns. And yeah, I can tell you the premiums were like more than 50%. And gold did its job, because gold is not an investment, even though it can be if you want, but it's more a peace of mind. I knew, for example, in 08, I was sitting with my colleagues at work, and everything was like just melting down. Lehman was collapsing, and we were talking, so who's going to be next? Is it going to be Morgan Stanley? And just watching the bank's shares collapse. I had no worries because I had the physical gold there if anything happened as insurance. And thankfully, I never had to use it. And that's the way you need to look at it. I think it's more savings, because it's money. And I'm not going to go through why it's money here in this video. I've done it many times before, also silver. But I recommend What Has Government Done to Our Money by Murray Rothbard of the Austrian School of Economics. He goes through he uses the regression theory analysis, which is you go back to the beginning to see how things started. And basically, gold and silver are just monetary commodities. They're the most marketable commodities, so they act as money. And that's the way we need to look at it. It's there for a rainy day. Yes, it's there as well for if you need to start a business, for example, or if you need to help a family member start a business. You can liquidate it anytime. It's the most marketable commodity and it will be accepted anywhere around the world. And yes, I do follow the price every day. That's a vestige of being a futures and options broker in the bond market and falling markets every day. When I bought gold and silver, I started falling gold and silver every day. And I noticed, though, right in the beginning, that there was something funny about the gold and silver price. And I put two and two together, of course, and realized that it was a managed market. You want to call it manipulated by the bullion banks, because trading the government bond markets, there wasn't something like, let's say, every time bonds or treasuries opened at a certain time, the market would go down every day. No, it was a lot more random trading the bond markets. Maybe they're more manipulated now because of QE. But with gold and silver, I found out like around 1 o'clock to 1:30 p.m. London time, which is around the time when the regular hours opened for the COMEX, that gold and silver would most of the time drop. I always found that gold and silver would always, a lot of times, go up in the mornings in London and most of the time go down in New York trading hours. And I thought that was really strange. And I started looking into why. And yes, and I found out, of course, that gold is the anti-dollar. So there's a lot of necessity for the central banks, for the bullion banks who are really own the central banks and the US Treasury and other countries as well, like the UK, to keep their currency stable versus money, because that's what it's all about. So yes, it has been frustrating the last 2 years or so in the gold and silver market because of the price action. But I can't think of any other asset to have outside the system that will protect my purchasing power, my family's purchasing power, and hopefully what it teaches you as well is that you also need to create value in your life. I see a lot of people out there, especially in the crypto world, but also in any investment like sector, saying, oh, buy this and you won't have to work again, you know. But I think that's the wrong way to go about it. You always want to be doing something, trying to create value. And I think gold and silver kind of teach you that, because you have to be very patient. But they're always there. They're always reliable. And I think, am I trying to say that I don't expect gold and silver to gain in relative value versus fiat currencies? No. Actually, I think there's a huge potential for that. Which would mean, of course, the price going up in dollars. But that's not the reason why I keep stacking. It's because it gives you peace of mind. The other thing about it is it's very private as well. So I'm not trying to tell you to buy gold and silver. I'm just trying to give you my experience and why I decided myself to buy gold and silver. And I recommend you do your due diligence, do your work, do your research. Don't believe me. Read the books. And I'm going to put some links up in the cards and in the description, because I've done a lot of book reviews of all the books that I've read. And Yes, all the books that I've recommended, and you might not know some of them. And as I told you, when I started buying gold, it was 220. So am I like, oh, I'm going to sell it now and make a profit? No, because the point of having gold and silver is also not holding on to the crappy fiat currencies, unfortunately, that our government and banking leaders provide us with. It's a way out of that system. It's a way of protecting, because gold is just a reflection of all the work and value that you've created. And fiat currencies don't reflect that value. And that's why it's so important for me to have a little bit of gold and silver, because fiat currency is, yes, it's not a good store of value. It might be a good currency, like, and might be good for payments, but horrible store of value. So with that, let's quickly look at where the markets are this morning then. It's 8:30 a.m. London time. And as usual, I'm going to start with gold and silver, because they're at the top of my screen here, because they are money. So we've got gold unchanged basically at 1675. High's been 1679 and the low 1670. Silver this morning is down about 12 cents at 1943. High's been 61, low 35. Stock market, the Dow futures is up 82 points, or 1/4%. NASDAQ 100 futures up 1/3%. And the S&P 500 is up just under a. And the S&P 500 is up 1/4% as well. FTSE is up 0.75% at 73.05. Eurostoxx 50 is up 0.75 at 35.25. To the currencies, sterling is at 114.60. That's up 1/4%. The euro is up 0.2, just above par. The dollar is up 0.2 versus the yen at 143.44. And the dollar is down slightly versus the Swiss franc at 96.30. Dollar is up slightly versus the yuan at 701.40. And the dollar is unchanged versus the ruble, trading at 60. It's almost like it's fixed now, the ruble. To the other currencies here, Aussie dollar is unchanged, 67.30. The dollar is down slightly versus the Canadian. The dollar is down slightly versus the Canadian dollar, 132.43. And the Kiwi dollar is down 1/4% at 59.45. To the general commodities, we've got WTI crude up 0.5%, 85.73. Brent is up 0.75% at 91.62. High-grade copper is up 0.5% at 3.53. U.S. nat gas is up 1% at 7.88. Let's check the European or the TTF nat gas futures. Well, that's down 3% at 177. We'll finish off with the bond market. The gilt market is open again after the bank holiday for the Queen's funeral yesterday. We got the 2-year gilt yield up 7.5 basis points, almost at 320. And the 10 years at 320 as well, up 4. So the curve is almost inverted there, 2s, 10s in the UK. To the US Treasury yield curve, of course, we got the Fed decision tomorrow. The meeting starts today. The 2-year yield is at 3.95, so approaching 4%. And the 10-year is at 3.49. We made an 11-year high yesterday in the 10-year yield at around 3.51. So, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button. Please share it far and wide. Think about subscribing to my channel if you haven't yet. And with that, I wish you all a great rest of the day. Take care. Bye.